The local library here in St. Charles County had a big Friends of the Library sale, so we went today. We're Friends of the Library members, and so we get early access from 9 till noon before the general public is to come in. So we've never done that before, so we decided to do it this year. It was pretty cool. We did find a lot of neat stuff. There was a huge, I could not believe the line. We got there like right at 9. The line was massive. I don't know how long it was, but it was huge. I took a picture of it. I don't know if the scope really comes across, but I was like, I cannot believe they wrapped around this building at this convention center. It was crazy. But once we got in there, it wasn't so bad. I was really hoping to find a lot of sci-fi and fantasy stuff that I had a little list. No, not really. I mean, I found a couple things that were kind of neat, but nothing amazing. Nothing in that section. There was some really neat stuff in like classic fiction that I found, I think, which was cool. Found some really good stuff there. Some kind of cool history stuff, and a couple other like, ooh, this is kind of neat kind of stuff. So that's what I'm gonna do. Just gonna show you off what I got here, and then I've got some books that have just kind of been accumulating over the past couple months, picking up here and there, and I'm gonna bring those up too. Just gonna go through some books. Here we go. We'll put some pictures up of the stacks, everything together. And I gotta say, like, all this stuff, I couldn't believe when we got there, and my wife's like, it's this much. And I'm like, it's what? Are you sure? She's like, yeah. I'm like, they counted everything, right? She's like, yeah. It was just like less than $70 for, I don't know, enough books that I had physical pains carrying these books, like carrying these bags. It was crazy. So for genre stuff, I did find a Glenn Cook book that looked interesting. I don't know anything about it, and it's Sung in Blood. It says, for centuries, the legendary protector... Oh, no, we went right through these names. Jurique, Victorious, has kept safe the crossroads of the world. Nope, I'm not going to say these names. I'm not going to do it. I'm already thinking, I'm very tired. So this thing, like, it was in the morning, but I worked yesterday. Well, for me, I worked Thursday night. And it was Friday morning. And so I got home about 7 in the morning, right? Been up at that point since, I don't know, like 1 o'clock the previous day. That's normal for me. And we were there till, I think we left the sale at noon. So I went home, I slept for a couple hours, and we went out and did some other stuff we had to do, some shopping, and spent some time with the kids. And it's midnight now, so I'm a little crispy, and I'm not going to read fantasy names. Anyways, this book looks good. I don't really know. It just seems kind of like a standard fantasy fare, but I've never heard of this book before, and I like Glenn Cook, writer of The Black Company, so I thought, yeah, I'm going to try this. What does it matter? This stuff was cheap. This book was probably 50 cents, I think paperbacks were 50 cents. Hardbacks were $2. My wife got a bunch of stuff too. So the pictures, there'll be some pictures of that. I was just happy that 2 of my daughters went and that they got stuff. It always makes you feel like I did something right. Maybe this might have been my wife's influence, though, honestly. I did find some Faulkner stuff. I talked about that in that last video about some Faulkner I wanted to get. So I wanted to get it because I liked this. They had these like leather editions. They didn't have everything there. Boy, these look really red. I don't know how red they are for you. These 2 Faulkner editions, they had a Light in August and a Sanctuary. I actually see now that I had Light in August already. That's okay. So these 2 were neat, and then I also picked up The Reavers by Faulkner. This one was, again, probably 50 cents. And I did not read anything about it. So The Reavers was one of Faulkner's comic masterpieces. The Reavers is a picturesque that tells of 3 unlikely car thieves from rural Mississippi. 11-year-old Lucas Priest is persuaded by Boone Hagenbeck, one of his family's retainers, to steal his grandfather's car and make a trip to Memphis. The priest's black coachman, Ned McCausland, stows away, and the 3 of them are off on a heroic odyssey for which they are ill-equipped that ends at Miss Reba's bordello in Memphis. From there, a series of wild misadventures ensues involving horse smuggling, trained men, sheriff's deputies, and jail. I don't know. It sounds fun. So they had this little table on the way out of like, if you change your mind, you can put your book here on this table. My daughter was kind of rummaging through it, and she found maybe 1 or 2 things, and I kind of looked, and I'm like, oh, what's this book? I'll grab this. This looks interesting. 50 cents. Let's try it. And it's Daniel Defoe, A Journal of the Plague Year. In 1665, the Great Plague swept through London, claiming nearly 100,000 lives. In a journal written nearly 60 years later, Defoe vividly chronicled The progress of the epidemic. We follow his fictional narrator through a city transformed, the streets and alleyways deserted, the houses of death with crosses dabbed on their doors, the dead carts on their way to the pits. This is such a cheery book, and it recounts the horrifying stories of the citizens he encounters as fear, isolation, and hysteria take hold. I'm not morbid, but it does sound cool. It does sound interesting. It really does. So, I don't know when I'll read this book. It's not certainly high up on any list for me, but it's one of those things that I might be like, oh, I kind of want to read the book now. So maybe this one up. And if I don't, it was only 50 cents, and it helped the library, which is cool. I saw a John Updike book. I don't know anything about this John Updike book. I'm not going to look it up. It's called In the Beauty of the Lilies. And I think this one is somebody's. Nope, there's a couple of these. It's always interesting to me when I get these used books and there's somebody's got their name and sometimes the date they got it or something in there. And I always think that's interesting. I never do that. Sometimes people put stickers in there and from the library of, and I don't know. I guess I don't. Some people do that, and I see maybe the people lend their books out. This probably wouldn't be a bad idea because there's been times I've lent books out and everything. Maybe that would. If I cataloged it, maybe that would make sense, but I've never done it. I just think it's interesting. I'm not judging anybody at all for doing that. It's just not something I do. And it's sort of like a little timestamp on that book. And I kind of like that. I kind of like when a book has got character. It's been around. I like used books. Moving on. I don't know anything about this John Updike book. I did find a couple McMurtry books. I was hoping to find a couple other things, but that's okay. I did find one I definitely didn't have, and that was Texasville, which sounds interesting. I do not like this cover at all, but in Texasville, I'm talking about McMurtry. I'm just skipping right to the second paragraph. His eagerly awaited major novel, McMurtry begins again at his subject, Texans. Oh, no. In Texasville, his eagerly awaited major new novel, McMurtry again takes as his subject Texas and Texans. But this time, it is the Texas of the mid-1980s. Oh, that's interesting. In the trough of the oil glut, where instant millionaires are in the process of becoming dazed instant debtors. So kind of cool. So, I don't know. I'm not going to read any more than that. But, I don't know. I really enjoy his writing. I prefer his more period books. So this was cool. And I picked up Lonesome Dove, which I talked about the other day. I picked it up because it was a hardback. It looks kind of like a book club edition almost. It is a book club edition, and just because of the size. Big book. But I was like, oh, it's a nice hardback. Cool. Again, I feel like this book was $2, and so no big deal. I kind of wanted to get a hardback. I would have liked to have found a nicer hardback, but of course, what am I expecting out of the library sale? But still, cool stuff. And that leads me to, two other books that are pretty big. This one was neat. To me, didn't look anything about it. I just saw it. I'm like, well, this has got to have some merit, some value. And it's the Columbian Anthology of Traditional Chinese Literature. Victor Marr is the editor. Okay. This thing is a beast. Yes, and not quite onion skin paper. You can't quite see through the pages the way you can through those Library of Congress books sometimes, but almost. And it's just a bunch of translated classic Chinese texts and literature, folk songs, his folk songs narrative verse, just various things and critiques and criticism on that thing. It just seemed kind of interesting. Maybe not something I would read cover to cover, but it might be maybe something that would come out in a reference. I'm like, is that in here? And then maybe I'd read a section of this, and that's probably the way I would engage with it, or I'd just pick something at random and try it and see if it captured my interest. That's most likely what it would get used for. If I saw this, I just picked up Sight Unseen. I feel like there's some credibility to it, and it's The West, an illustrated history, coffee table book, with a preface by Stephen Ikes and Ken Burns. And I like Ken Burns. Ken Burns does some good stuff. And this is a kind of a cool book, pretty big, nice photographs, and really that's why I picked it up. I mean, $2 for just a bunch of interesting old photographs. I really think this cover photograph is very fascinating, and I'm just going to do this instead of trying to open it up. Very interesting. Just in various conversations, to some smaller conversations with Daniel Peterson, where he talks a lot about Lafferty. I think Cormac McCarthy too, which I have not read. One of those writers I probably will read, but I just haven't gotten to reading him yet. talking a lot about like Native American, just things about Native Americans, right? And he had a whole video where he talked about a Disney show whose name I cannot remember, but that's not important because I'll probably link his video in there because it was very entertaining and good. A lot of his stuff, it really is very good. Honestly, it really is. I find it very fascinating that he can talk so long with so little. It's like, sometimes I feel like I don't have enough to talk about. How am I going to make something out of this one book? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to read the back of this book. On the back of this book, there's 3 quotes. I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes about these 3 quotes. And guess what? You're going to be engaged and interested the whole time. And he pulls it off. So very impressive, honestly. Talking about Native American like history and just different things. Mostly it was sort of pertaining to Lafferty, but that one video he talked about Reservation Dogs, which is a great show. Honestly, I kind of was interested in already, and he saw that. He said something about it, and I started watching it and really, 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 really enjoyed it. Wonderful show, absolutely wonderful. It's got me more interested. I've always kind of had an interest in the West, and this seems interesting. Anyhow, I don't know if I brought that full circle. That's okay. But there's another book, and I guess I'll show it now. And again, this massive coffee table book, $2. And the other one I found that was really interesting. It's at the bottom of this stack, and I should wait and do it, but I won't. Is this book, The Mystic Warriors of the Plains, by Thomas E. Males. The Culture, Arts, Crafts, and Religion of the Plains Indians, profusely illustrated by Thomas E. Males. I noticed. I wasn't certain at first who was doing the illustrations, but he's got a signature behind all of them. It's a big book, right? And I thought, well, this is interesting. Okay, I took some pictures of this too. Lots of really great illustrations. Like, this book is loaded with illustrations by the author. And also some full color work. I don't know if he did the full color stuff. Nope, he did. I see his signature. So I don't know much about this book. It was copyright early 70s, 72, I think. Because I was kind of like, huh. Well, what got me on that track was at the inside of the dust jacket, it says it's $25. I'm like, well, this is no way. This is a new book. You couldn't buy this paper for $25. I guess. Not at retail level. And I want to say this is early, like 72. That's what I think it was. Anyways, it just looked really interesting. Yeah, it was 1972. And it says that Thomas E. Males is a minister in a Lutheran church in Pomona, California. He has been interested in Plains Indians for years and has done extensive research on the subject. His collection of Indian artifacts is well known, and his paintings of Indians have been shown in several galleries. Now, I am reading directly from the book, and they're saying Indian. I know that word has fallen out of use. Native American, or is it indigenous now? Or I'm not really certain what the common parlance is. I think because of maybe my interactions with Daniel Peterson or something else, I got like this, some of these videos coming up in my feed, like as suggested videos, and some of them were like the poorest reservation in the United States or something. I watched this video. This guy was going around to different reservations and just going around with people and just kind of talking to the locals. It was really interesting. It really was. I'm going to link that video too. I don't know if it's exactly parallel with the stuff I do here, but if that sounds interesting to you, maybe check it out. I mean, I think that's kind of interesting. It's definitely the kind of stuff that we can raise awareness of. It wasn't like some sort of like a harrowing exploration of that. Not that it's not a very impoverished area, but it wasn't like horrendously impoverished. It's obvious like systematic poverty. I'm not going to get into all that or try to, especially mentally where I feel like I am right now. But it was really interesting, and I do recommend it. I am going to link that video. I don't remember the name of the channel or even the name of the video, but I'm going to put it in the description. I encourage you, if you're interested, to check it out. So that, obviously, the term Indian is sort of done away with, but it was kind of interesting in that video that I watched where he asked the man who was showing him around the reservation, who was Native American. He's like, well, how should I refer to Native people. And his answer was kind of like, well, some of us we prefer our traditional name, whatever the actual like name of that particular group is. That's what we prefer. He says, although some of the old timers prefer Indian. And I thought, okay. He goes, because that's what's actually on the treaties. And that's the language that they use on those treaties. And that's how they view it. And I thought that was very interesting. It was a very interesting and also a very down to earth, not sort of like someone in a room talking about it, theorizing and things, like the people who are living it, right? What do they think? How do they feel about this? But this book looks great. Obviously, Thomas Males had a great interest in Native American culture. Like I said, I don't think there's more than 2 pages in a row that don't have illustrations. And this is and again, this is a large book. So this is a lot of work. But I don't know anything about him as a person or anything, but this definitely seems very, someone who has a lot of love and affection for that culture. That's my impression from perusing the book quickly. So, and honestly, I really got this book not because I thought that the history would necessarily be great. I don't know how good or bad it isn't, but because I liked the illustrations and I thought they were a lot of time input into them, and I was very interested in them. So that's where I'm at with that. Okay, so there is a little bit of genre fiction here. We have Brian Aldiss, The Galactic Empires, Volume 2. This looks interesting. I was kind of like, okay, it would have been cool if I could have found Volume 1 also, but everything was so disorganized, who knows. And here we go. We have Dennis Davenport, September 1978. Oh, I don't know if I can get that. It just seems, I don't know. This camera might hate it. It just hates that white paper. It just hates it. And this looked interesting. Basically, it's an anthology. It is a vast 2-volume novel of the future by some of the great science fiction writers alive: Clarke, Asimov, Anderson, Simak, Smith, Van Vogt, Harry Harrison, and others. Now, all those writers are good, and I like them. But I've seen so many books with them in here. The reason I got this, the biggest reason, was not just because Aldous had himself, who I haven't read very much of and I'm interested in, not just because he edited it, but honestly, because there was a story in here by Avram Davidson. And that will show up again later. Looked interesting, so I picked it up. I mean, yeah. Low risk, right? This is the best part about these libraries, is you can just try, like I don't know, you just try it. Just try it. I think that's great. That's what I love about the libraries. And also, I like to support the library. The library is such a fantastic, I mean, I think it's, as if not, maybe slightly, sometimes I think even slightly more, or at least on par with the parks, as far as how important it is to our country. That's how I feel. Libraries are extremely important. They are much more than just books. This might seem a little bit silly, but I have an interest in this, and I've read some of this kind of stuff before, and it's pretty good. This is New Cowboy Poetry, a contemporary gathering. You might think cowboy poetry, how much are we going to get out of that? I don't know. I mean, I've read some stuff of this before, and it can be very fun and very interesting. And there's a lot of heart put into these kind of poems. It seems strange to say. It seems kind of silly when you think about it first, cowboy poetry. But then after you kind of get into it, you kind of think, this isn't too bad. This is actually kind of good. Something too, this is interesting that some of these writers of these poems have been on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Of course, that's back in the days when Carson was still doing the Tonight Show. I got to see the very tail end of that when I was young. I didn't really watch it until like the last few years he was doing it, and Leno was getting ready to take over. I don't know. I thought it was neat. It was, again, 50 cents. It was worth a try. Pertinent to a later thing I will talk about. I saw this and I thought, I'm going to get it. It is heavily hand annotated. Somebody has gone through, and this was probably a book that they used for study in some sort of a class or something. But Thomas More's Utopia. Now I could have gotten this book. I mean, what is it? I could have gotten this Penguin Classic for like, I don't know, $5. I don't know what it's up to now, honestly. But, so it's not like a huge savings compared to some of the other books. But I don't know. It was just kind of like, cool, it's right here. I don't know if I'll ever really, truly go through and read it, but I feel like this is much easier to peruse than maybe a free resource online or like an audio book that's on YouTube. That's fine if you want to go through it, but sometimes, especially with older stuff, an audio format just doesn't do it because it does power through and you're still trying to, for me, I was trying to process something and it just keeps going. I'm like, wait a minute, I can't do this. You gotta, I'm not keeping up. I'm not. So this is, like I said, heavily underlined and annotated. I don't know if that came up or could come up. Yeah, here we go. You can probably see the writing in here. Of course, my daughter was like, I can't even read this stuff. I'm like, well, everybody's cursive is different. That's something that's kind of fallen away. People forget nowadays is that you used to be able to tell who wrote something by their handwriting. That's neither here nor there. I've read this book before. I didn't own a copy. I don't love this copy, but for 50 cents, I thought I'll do it. And that is Stephen Crane's The Red Badge of Courage, a really great book. I think I might have convinced my middle daughter to read it. She likes cowboy stuff and westerns, and I kind of gave her the hot take on the book, like a quick summary of it, and she was kind of like, "Ooh, this sounds good." I'm like, "It really was good." If you haven't read The Red Badge of Courage, it actually really is a good book. I don't think. I'm trying to see if I can. I think an impression might be of this is a Civil War book, and that it's very Civil War-ish, and I think that it kind of goes beyond that, sort of like late middle-aged dad talking about the Civil War type stuff, right? I think it does something much more than that, if that helps, right? I think it's literature, right? It talks about the human condition. It's all about a recruit who goes off to join the Union, I believe. I'm almost positive it's the Union, and becomes afraid and sort of deserts, and then feels guilty about it, and he falls in with some injured soldiers, and sort of the inner turmoil that he has seeing these soldiers who suffered severe injury and sometimes death, and how he ran away, and he really struggles with that and what comes out of it. Honestly, a really well-written book. I really enjoyed this. I read it a long time ago. I read this book, and I read The Killer Angels right after it, or right before it, and both of those books are super highly recommended. If you have even like a kernel of interest in the Civil War, a kernel, this book and The Killer Angels by Michael Sahara, something like that. Or is it Jeff? One of them is the father and one is the son. The father is Killer Angels, and I think that's the only one he wrote. His son has gone on to write other stuff. I've never read anything his son has written. But Killer Angels is amazing, and that's all about the Battle of Gettysburg. If you plan on going to Gettysburg, I'll say this: if you ever go to Gettysburg, which actually was a really great experience for me, and I was not a middle-aged person at that time. Really, really interesting, really fascinating. I recommend reading that book first and then going. I think it would make a rewarding experience even more rewarding. That's me. Not everybody engages the way I engage with things. Anyhow, I saw this edition, and I think I honestly got this book because of the cover and the edition. I don't know if this is the best. The binding is super tight, and it's a very old printing, but it's Albert Camus's The Plague. And I think I wanted to get this book, 50 cents. It has an old book smell to it, too. A very old book smell, and the binding is like super, the pages are like super thick. Are they? Or maybe I'm crazy. I could be crazy. Yeah, I'm a little crazy. Yeah, okay. They're not as thick as I thought. But the binding is like super tight. I don't really know what the deal is there. It's almost like plastic. It's almost like the cover is plastic almost, is how it feels. I don't know. Interesting. This translation was by, from French, was done by, I can't remember if that matters. I don't know if it matters. Stuart Gilbert. So I don't know if that's a great translation or not, but I thought, I'm going to do it because I like the cover. And that's not a great reason to buy a book, but it isn't a terrible reason to buy a book that is great. I don't know that book is great, but I have an interest in Camus, and I have not read him yet. This book I actually was reading. I think I found a free version of it and was kind of reading an e-version of it, and then I saw I'm going to grab it right now. And that's Wilma Carter's O Pioneers. Sorry, Wilma Cather. Excuse me. Set on the Nebraska prairie where Wilma Cather, 1873 to 1947, grew up, this powerful early novel tells the story of a young Alexander Alexandra Bergson, whose dying father leaves her in charge of the family and of the lands they have struggled to farm. And Alexandra's long fight to succeed and to survive and succeed. O Pioneers relates an important chapter in the history of the American frontier. I read another book that I'm going to talk about later, and it said this was a very good Western book about the West. Western, not exactly, but sort of, but about the West. And I thought that sounded interesting. And I did read like the first couple pages of it, like I said, an e-version of it before other things demanded my attention. And it did seem like it was going to be a good book. So I look forward to reading this. I'm not going to say that anymore because I look forward to reading all these things. I didn't buy any of these books with the intention to not read them. I don't know if I own this book or not already. This was one of the only other sci-fi books I was able to find, and that's Jack Vance's Lurloo. And I think I have Ports of Call. Actually, I might even have this book. I probably went blind by doing that. So well, I don't know. I thought I had Ports of Call, or I have Night Lamp. I cannot keep all the Jack Vance books titles straight. I've seen so many of them. Oh, I think I have Ports of Call upstairs in trade paperback. That's what I think. So maybe I don't have Lurloo. Maybe I don't have this book. But this book, glasses down, is a picturesque adventure that begins very much in the style of Wodehouseian comedy of manners. That's another thing. I think Wodehouse was like Vance really enjoyed his style. I think I think I've seen and I've read a little bit of Wodehouse, but not a whole lot, and I can see a bit of the influence in Vance, and I kind of like that. These mannerly, sometimes decidedly quirky individuals just happen to own or long for yachts that flirt through space and hop from planet to planet in the course of their journeys to many ports. Authorial maturity, like well-aged whiskey, can offer a remarkable combination of... Oh, this is a quote from Locust Magazine. Basically saying Jack Vance is good. Yeah, I already knew that. That's why I got this book. But this looks good. This one was maybe the only one that I paid a little more for. I paid $3 for it, and it just looked interesting, and I couldn't decide if I wanted it. I thought, you know what? Let's try it. I actually am very glad that I got it. And it's a graphic novel, a graphic biography of James Joyce, A Portrait of a Dubliner. It's sort of like it's about James Joyce. It's just these black and white sort of comic illustrations that talk about his biography. It seemed like a really fun way to engage with it. You know, much more fun than reading a Wikipedia article. And for $3, that seems okay. Although not that Wikipedia articles are bad. I use Wikipedia a lot. It used to be a thing where you Wikipedia, oh no. And now I'm not so sure. Now I think like, oh, well, what else are you going to go to? It seems pretty. I don't know what the state of opinion is about Wikipedia, but it's decent enough. You're generally right. You just got to be careful with the details, I guess. Sometimes. I didn't need this book, but I've not encountered normally just in my wanderings a hardcover version of it, and I really like the cover. Although I'll probably never find the rest of the books in this cover, but if I did, I guess I'd get them now. And that's Lloyd Alexander, who's I have a great affection for, and it's the very first book, the Book of Three. I love this series. I haven't read it in a very long time. I have a very great affection for Alexander and his Book of Three series. I'm not going to try and say it. I think it's Prydain, but I don't know if I'm saying that right. Chronicles, which is probably the most well-known of which is Black Cauldron, which they made a Disney movie of, which is kind of like the first two books, sort of. It's not bad. It's not terrible. I think it tries to capture the spirit of the books, but it doesn't capture the sophistication of the books or the sort of the presence they have. They kind of stay with you. They're really excellent young adult books, and I don't generally go for young adult. It's just not something I generally love, but I really like Alexander. And this is a series I really need to revisit. So, I don't know. If nothing else, I thought, I love this cover. I just think this cover is, I don't know how much glare it's getting. Let's see if I can get it to where, I just love that cover. It's got that big sticker on it in the front there. That used to be some sort of library sticker, I guess. But I just love the cover. It's just great. This is the last one of mine that I picked up, I think. And that's something that Curtis at Deep in the Reads talked about. And I thought, oh man, I remember that book. I always wanted to read it, and I found it. $2. It's basically apart from the dust jacket, it's basically brand new. I mean, I could see going to the bookstore and getting a copy that looks just like this, and that's an instance of the finger post. Hardback. Apart from the sticker on the back, where it was marked as $27, well, I got a one-up on you guys. I only paid $2. Not that I need to one-up the writer, Ian Pierce, or anything like that. But you know what? You got to take them where you can take them. If it gets me to read the book, then that's the thing. And maybe I revisit Pierce for something else. Curtis did a really great review. I do not like linking stuff because it always feels like I said, it feels like chores that I have to do at the end of the video. And by the time I'm done and the editing, it's just like, whatever. I don't care. But this book looks really good. Sorry. Oh, thanks. Thanks for talking. It's all about yourself. What the hell is this book about? Let me just tell you, we're in England in 1660. Charles II has been restored to the throne following years of the Civil War and Oliver Cromwell's short-lived republic. Oxford is the intellectual seat of the country, a place of great scientific, religious, and political firmament. A fellow of New College is found dead in suspicious circumstances. Something like that. I was close to that sentence. A young woman is accused of his murder. We hear the story of the death from 4 witnesses: an Italian physician intent on claiming credit for the invention of blood transfusion, the son of an alleged royalist traitor, a master cryptographer who has worked for both Cromwell and the king, and a renowned Oxford antiquarian. Each tells his own version of what happened. Only one reveals the extraordinary truth. And I talked to Curtis about this, and I'm like, that's interesting because it's all different perspectives, and everyone has a different angle. That's very much like in a bamboo grove. As Curtis would point out, this book is a lot more. It becomes a lot more obvious what's really going on instead of being just a big question mark at the end. Bamboo Grove. This book looks neat. That's what I got at the library sale. Now, other stuff. Why other stuff? Because some of the stuff is stuff that I just want to bring up. These are just. I have a decent amount. I read this book a long time ago. I read most of it a long time ago, and I kind of want to revisit it. And it's McMurtry's I understand that the proper way to say the name, although I could be wrong, it's not Sacagawea, but Sacagawea. And it's Sacagawea's nickname. And it's a series of writings about the West, like nonfiction stuff that McMurtry wrote. Essays on the American West. And I've read some of this before, and I enjoyed it. And I wanted to have it. And for $10 for this hardback, which is more or less, apart from it came from the Douglas County High School Library on Front Street. No idea where that is. I do not believe that is in this state. No, it is in Colorado. So it came a long way to get to my house. It's mine now. There's that. I did talk about Daniel Peterson and his talk about Lafferty and everything else. Great stuff. So we'll start with, in a discussion about that, I learned that there's a lot of stuff in Pastmaster that's italicized. And I didn't realize that. And when I heard that, I thought, oh, that really does kind of put a different spin on what's going on. So I picked up the copy just from Amazon of Pastmaster. It does have an introduction that the audiobook uses this image, and it says, an introduction. It had no introduction. It was not included. Oh, well. In any event, the book was really great, and indeed it does have italics in it. I certainly hope so. My God, yes, it does. I would like to reread it, and in rereading it, it would be good to see how things change, or if the tone changes when I'm not listening to it. There is sort of some tentative plans for myself and a few other people to talk with Daniel on his channel about Lafferty and our experience with reading, which sounds really exciting. And I've picked up a bunch of Lafferty stuff in the meantime. But nothing really quite matches reading. I know I don't physically read a lot of books. I do a lot of audiobooks, I know. There's a very good reason for that. And the really good reason is because of my job. And my job means that I get my hands very dirty, and I would ruin books if I were to try to read them at work with me at work, or to come home and I didn't, I would say a significant portion of my reading, more than significant, happens while I'm working. right? I'm doing something else, right? Turning a wrench or wiring something. So happens a lot. This is what I do. And talking with Daniel, I asked about a couple other books and he gave me some recommendations. Although now I feel as though I need to get one more that I didn't get. Anyhow, but here's the ones that I picked up. The one I was most interested in at first was Fourth Mansions. And I wanted a certain copy of it that had like this weird, it had a frog on it with glowing eyes, and I liked it. But I thought that they wanted too much for a cover, and I thought, am I ever really going to care about that cover? No. But I got Fourth Mansions, and this is the cover I got, which is fine. I do like it. And honestly, what made me decide I just need to have this book now. There's a quote by Zelazny. Zelazny must have really liked Lafferty because his quotes are very structured. They feel like they're really, he like really kind of like try to find like a real zing in his quote to really get you to go try them, which is good. I think I appreciate that. Let me read you. I'm just going to read you Zelazny's quote because I honestly don't know very much about the novel, although I'm sure Daniel told me. I just forgot. So here's what Zelazny says. Whom the gods would destroy, they should first have read Fourth Mansions. The closest comparison I can think of is a psychedelic morality play where the virtues and vices keep sneaking off stage and switching masks. One comes away from it as one awakens from a dream. The part where he says, a morality play where the virtues and vices keep sneaking off stage and switching masks. Like I said, okay, I'm gonna have to buy this book right now. Just that's not even the full sentence. It's just part of the sentence. I was like, yeah, I want to read this book. I don't know if it really pays on that. I feel like since it's not Lafferty talking about his own work, but somebody else talking about the experience of reading it, that it's probably, I don't want to say Lafferty's inaccurate, but it's hard to pin down what he's trying to tell you sometimes. All right. And I feel like that Zelazny's quote is probably a more accurate description of the novel than maybe Lafferty would have written for us, just based on some of the reading I've done of Lafferty. This is okay. It's okay. I appreciate that he's kind of messing with you a bit, or kind of, I think he is. It's totally doing it. Totally messing with you. That's okay. Okay. All right. Once you know that he'll be messed with, and he's kind of smiling when he's doing it, you're like, oh, okay. All right, I get it. Cool. Fun. Anyhow, that's the last new quote was, I was like, okay, I guess I'm buying this. I'm not gonna buy the frog cover for $40. I'll buy this one. It wasn't too bad. I didn't have no idea what I paid for it, but it was reasonable for a kind of slightly more difficult paperback to find. And honestly, pretty good condition. Apart from this little chip out of the corner in the back, pretty good. That spine is not creased. No. No idea I don't know. It is from 1969, that's all it says. I guess it's like a first edition. I don't know. I also picked up Lafferty's The Wreaths of Earth. Again, Daniel talked a little bit. I asked him, he said, well, I can give you like a little pocket like synopsis and like kind of give you like he didn't say hot take, I'm saying hot take of these books. I thought, okay, cool. And he did. And I was like, okay, yep. And I basically got everything except for The Devil is Dead, or is that what it's called? Dang it. Well, whatever that book is, except for that one. And I wish I had, because that book sounds really cool. And that's the one he had a video, I don't know, not too long ago, where he mentioned that book and he read a quote for it. And I'm like, oh, why did you read that quote? You put a worm in my brain that will not let me alone until I own that book, until I can have it in my hands. It will eat away at me. Where are we at? Wreaths of Earth. A Plague of Demons. That's what the people of Lost Haven called the 6 children, 7 if you counted Bad John, of the Dulanti family. They looked like normal Earth children, except when they flicked their ears like animals or made their eyes glow with a green fire, and if you looked at them sideways, they did look strangely like nightmarish gargoyles. And the truth is, these children are Puskins. I have no idea. Pucas. You decide. Vote. But no, there's no voting. I'm not voting. I just know that I'm wrong. Aliens from a strange planet, and they have taken it upon themselves to reduce the world to a population of 6. 7 if you count a bad John. Wishing will make it so, for by making up an appropriate death rhyme, they can destroy their victims. These frightening, far-out kids take a black delight. Oh, I'm sorry. It's hyphenated, so it kind of threw me. A black delight in destroying their neighbors, and the earth. People are defenseless against them. ... Sounds good. Not quite as excellent a condition. I think I get this book paired with the next one for a very reasonable price. I want to say like 12 or 13. It was not much. It was very cheap. So I guess this is an ace double. It's an ace double. It is. It's with Lafferty's Space Chantry, which seems fun. And the other side is Ernest Hill, A Pity About Earth. Don't know anything about Ernest Hill. We're not putting Ernest Hill down. I just don't know anything about it. And it does probably not have. This is what it says on the Lafferty side of the book, and it's got a nice little 20-cent mark in red pen there. Oh well, I don't mind that. Again, I like that stuff that gives a character. I'm sure somebody would be like, "Oh, never." The Lay of the Roadstorm from the Ancient Chronicles. We give you here good spheres and cool boy conicals, probably. And perils pinnacled and parts impossible, and every word of it sworn on gospel. Is that weird? Lend ear while things incredible we ring about, and spaceman dead and deathless yet we sing about. Oh, this is a poem. No wonder I'm struggling. I'm trying to read it like it's a sentence. Anyways, Space Chantry. I don't know what it's about. It's about. It's based on the title Space Chantry, and also it's illustrated. Space Chantry, it's in space, and there's something to do with the church, which I kind of like that idea. There's a George R. R. Martin series that I'd like to reread and talk about at some point. What is that story called? Oh, I don't remember. So there you go. You can just be in suspense. The last one was an R.A. Lafferty book that I got, and this one, The Annuals of Cleppus, and here it is. Ooh, fancy. Plots and intrigue and romance abound, smoke pictures, ghosts, and treasure chests to be found. That's already, I'm like, okay, that sounds like fun. I love pulp stuff, especially when it's pulpy, and then somebody writes about it in a way that's more like literate. I think I said that when I reviewed Frederick Pohl's Gateway. I just love that. That's probably the thing that makes me love The New Sun so much, is that it's very pulpy, very pulp fiction-ish, right? Very, very, very much, like very John Carter of Mars, Sword and Planet type stuff. But it's written like literature, and I love. That's what I always want. That's what I always want. That genre fiction to get the literature treatment. So anyhow, and Lafferty kind of does that too. And that's what we're getting here. We're getting a pulp story, and I imagine that he's giving it a very fun and interesting treatment. Magnifying monocles and hallucinogenic grapes. The unvoiced dreams of the dregs of space. Long John, Tony Tyrone, the peg-legged historian. You know what? Those weren't words. Long John, Tony Tyrone, the peg-legged historian, journeys there, and marries a princess with rainbow hair. But the ghost of Christopher Branagh... Christopher Branagh? Okay. Will not rest. Is this the actor? That's some other Branagh. Kenneth Branagh. For some reason, I was like, was Kenneth Branagh? Never mind. Will not rest until the mathematician Alonius has been put to the test. This is a poacher too, goddammit. His theory concerning the doomsday equation, which might save the planet from total devastation, or might not. What a fun little... I did not notice that, because I didn't read it out loud. I never noticed that was poetry. How silly of me. Looks like it was a lot of fun. And somebody's gone and given this book like the library treatment, so it's got like, I don't know, like this plasticky tape. You can kind of see the seams on the inside. All right, so this book is like this really hard, like durable cover. I love it. I told my wife, I said, we got a bunch of paperbacks. We should do this. I love this. I don't know. I'd probably somebody who's collecting was like, oh, it's ruined. I don't care. It's not for you. It's my book anyways. I can ruin it if I want. I probably won't. A book I recently rebought that I've wanted to read, and that is James Morrow's The Wine of Violence. And I absolutely love that title, and I love the cover, which is like this city, sort of, I think it's supposed to be like a utopian city, surrounded by a river of blood that is red blood, and the skull, and it's like this wasteland outside. There's some kind of a ship breaking through some sort of thing going on up there. Just great. It says, there was a wall. Within its embrace was an ancient city whose gentle inhabitants were incapable of violence, even in the self-defense. Even in the self-defense? There was no though there. Listen, it's throwing me off because this isn't poetry. I'm used to poetry at this point. Outside, there was a wilderness where a half-human brain eaters roamed, killing on sight, and between the two ran a wine-red river of liquefied hate. Ooh. This is the story of good and evil and a man who sought to embrace them both. I just love it. Sort of like parable or fable-ish. It just seems neat. It says it's a science fiction fable on the front cover. James Morrow, The Wine of Violence. It was one of those things I was like, I want to read that book. I really do. I've read some of these stories before. I want to read some more of them. They had a really nice edition come out, and I picked it up. I just love Manly Wade Wellman's stuff, and it's Manly Wade Wellman, of course, and John the Balladeer. This is a really nice new cover. It's got this sort of matte, textury feel to it. I like it. Hardback. Very nice book. I'll probably have to do something to open this up. It says, in John the Balladeer, Manly Wade Wellman created one of the greatest characters in all of horror and fantasy literature, armed with his silver-stringed guitar and an endless trove of folk songs. John travels the backwoods of Appalachia, battling supernatural evil with his own brand of down-home charm and endless resourcefulness. In these tales, John wanders the southern mountains, encountering hoodoo men, witch women, strange supernatural beasts, malevolent spirits, and even George Washington's ghost. A silly way to think about it is Johnny Cash traveling through the Appalachian Mountains, solving ghost story mysteries and like putting cryptids, like scaring them off. Stuff like that. They're a lot of fun. They're very interesting written. The only caution I would give you if you decide to look into Wellman and these stories is that if you get an audio format of any of Wellman's stuff, I think this, and there's another one too that my wife said she read, and she did the audio for that. I think it was the Hairy Ones, or the Hairy Ones Will Dance, or something, which I think is like a werewolf type thing. Is the reader might put a bit of dialect spin on it, because that's kind of suggested in the writing. And if that doesn't work for you, it might make the book difficult to enjoy. I know the audio format of this, I'm not 100% in love with. The voice I had for John in my head was not the voice that the audio had, and I wasn't quite in love with it. But not that it was a bad reading or that the voice acting was bad, because it wasn't. I just put a different persona on John that I didn't like as much as the one that was in my head. So that's maybe a slight caution. These are really great little stories. I want to say, I almost wanted to say something like Scooby-Doo-ish, and I don't think that's quite accurate. That makes it seem too silly. But there is a slight, I don't want to say humorous or comedic element, but there's a little bit of that. It isn't trying to be silly per se, although sometimes it kind of is. It just sort of seems, it has a very unique tone. A unique tone that I'm not quite able to sum up at the moment. Ghosts and weird cryptid monsters and like witches and hoodoo men and all the kinds of things. Old Scratch, right? Like the devil and stuff like that. All that stuff. And John travels around the Appalachian Mountains, and he has this silver string guitar that is sort of his defense against the forces of evil. And he just sort of wanders around and sings songs and solves mysteries, and it's kind of awesome. Lucius Shepard is a writer I've read and I've collected a few books of, but I have neglected to actually get back to him and really give him a really hard, fair shake. I don't really know why I'm shaking him so hard, but I saw that And I think he passed away. I don't know, not very recently, I don't think, but not too terribly long ago, which is sad. I really enjoyed his fantasy. I wish I'd gotten around to reading more of it while he was still with us. But I heard about this book, and I got very interested in it. I picked it up. I'm probably going to pick up some of these other books. Unfortunately, they're not really in print, so I have to get them secondhand. But this is the Dragon Griole. Let's see if I can get this glare off of this. Oof. Nope, really. There you go, the Dragon Griole. It's got that like library plastic on it, but I don't think this was not a library book. Let me just read you what this is, since I'm going to have a difficult time summing it up, or I'll probably get it incorrect. More than 25 years ago, Lucius Shepard introduced us to a remarkable fictional world, a world separated from our own by the thinnest margin of possibility. There, in the mythical Carbonalis Valley, Shepard found the setting for The Man Who Painted the Dragon Griole. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I don't think I'm probably not. The classic account of an artist, Merrick Cantony, fancy names, and his decade-long effort to paint and kill a dormant, not quite dead dragon measuring 6,000 feet. That's a little over a mile. From end to end. The story was nominated for multiple awards and is now recognized as one of its author's signature accomplishments. Over the years, Shepard has revisited this world in a number of brilliant, independent narratives that have illuminated the dragon's story from a variety of perspectives. This loosely connected series reached a dramatic crossroads in the astonishing novella Tabarin Scale. The Dragon Griole now gathers all of these hard-to-find stories in a single generous volume. The capstone of the book, and a particular treat for Shepard fans, is the back cover. Is The Skull, a new 40,000-word novel. This doesn't sound very long, that advances the story in unexpected ways, collecting the ongoing saga of an ancient, fabulous beast with the political realities of Central America in the 21st century, augmented by a group of engaging, highly informative story notes. The Dragon Griole is an indispensable novel, the work of a master stylist with a powerful and always unpredictable imagination. It sounds really good. I like fantasy stories that don't deal with epic heroes venturing off doing crazy stuff. I like smaller stories, and it sounds like a slightly smaller story. This he wants to kill the dragon, but I love the idea that he wants to paint this dragon that's 6,000 feet long and all the complications with that. I just love that idea. It just seems like, and I love that he's messing with that and just sort of sees what he can do with it. So I've read a little bit of his short works before. I really enjoyed them. I have a number of Shepard's works up there, and I want to get a couple more of them as well. So look forward to reading this. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen because I really want to read it. I mentioned before, I don't know if I said that I picked this up or not, but I mentioned before that I read that Avram Davidson collection. I really liked it. Got really into Avram. I think I have a couple more books other than this, but these are the ones I'm going to bring up. First, I did pick up Lime Killer from Amazon, and this looks really fun. It's set in British Hidalgo, which is a fictionalized version of British Honduras and Belize. Jack Limekiller, master of the working sailboat, Sasharisa. Well, I probably didn't get that right. Encounters ghosts of the colonial past and monsters far older. So it's sort of like I want to say it's like a pseudo magical realism. I read one of the stories out of here, Manatee Gals, Can You Come Out Tonight? I think that's what it is. I really liked it. I really liked the writing. In fact, I read a little sample of it in that video. This looks like I anticipate this being excellent, and everything I've read by Davidson has been really great. So I don't think I'm too far from the mark there. I did mention that he has a fantasy series that follows Virgil, the writer of the Aeneid, and the idea that in the Middle Ages people forgot that Virgil was a writer. They forgot his accomplishments as a poet and that he was the writer of the Aeneid, and instead thought that he was a sorcerer. Interesting. Davidson takes that idea and says, what if that was true? And wrote a novel about it. And he wrote 2 novels, actually 3, about it. The first is The Phoenix in the Mirror. Okay. This one sounds really great. I'll just read the whole inside of the dust jacket because that's why we're here. A curious legend arose during the Dark Ages as ancient civilizations were crumbling in the shadows of the past, which described the poet Virgil as an all-powerful sorcerer. In time, strange tales transformed his life into fantasies of occult secrets and heroic deeds. The world he moved in became a tantalizing place where alchemy and magic held sway, where men walked in fear of troglodytes and manticores, and the phoenix, reborn, rose up out of the flame. Such is the setting for this remarkable novel. Virgil Magus fell under the spell of the Lady Cordelia, dowager queen of Tarsus, who forced him to make her a mirror that had never before reflected a human face. It was a difficult and dangerous task, but when it was finally completed, the face that appeared on the mirror's surface was that of Princess Laura, daughter of Cordelia, and prisoner of the great four-armed Cyclops. Virgil fell in love with the beautiful reflection and set out to rescue Laura. There were strange and exotic confrontations on his hazardous journey until at last he was pitted against the demonic powers of the Phoenix. Not what you expected out of a Phoenix, huh? The Phoenix in the Mirror is the first projected series to be titled Virgil Magus. Is inspired by medieval tales and legends, but is touched throughout by a fragile and haunting reality that is ageless. Doesn't that sound good? Well, it sure does to me. The Phoenix in the Mirror. No, that is so much glare on that. I can't get rid of the glare, sorry. Phoenix in the Mirror. Yeah, this is an older copy. I don't love it's got kind of like this little like water stainy thing going on the inside. It's okay. It wasn't too bad. I don't think the price was too bad. There was heard something interesting about how this book was published and it just didn't sell and they were going to scrap them, and that Davidson bought them all up and like sold them piecemeal for like many years afterwards. I dig the kind of guy that it seems like he was. I also picked up the sequel. This one was a little bit more dear. I struggled to find this, and I wonder if these are going to get reprinted, but that's okay. I do like these. I really, the cover on this one I think is okay. I don't love it. I'm not critiquing it. It just seems very much of its time, which seems like a very 60s cover. Is this from the 60s? I have no idea. It's probably from the 70s. I'm probably wrong. Nope, 69. Look at me. 69. Man, I should do this like I don't know. I don't get paid for it, so I should do this for a living. It's a silly thing to say. Anyway, second book is Virgil and Arvino, the sequel to Phoenix in the Mirror. And this one says, now Virgil Magus, the powerful sorcerer poet, returns in a long-awaited sequel to Avram Davidson's best-selling novel, A Fable of Magic, The Phoenix in the Mirror. Here, Virgil's extraordinary adventures continue as he journeys into the hideous heart of evil and darkness, enter the very rich city of Arvino, and discover a place of untold riches and untamed lusts, orgies and drunken revelries, and madness and human corruption. Here is a decaying metropolis of wizards and warlocks, where old crones spin webs of cruelty and deceit, and hell lurks in a labyrinth of underworld caves. Virgil has come to Arvino to uncover the secret of its eternal fires, the very center of its wealth and prominence. But as he explores the inner sancta of this ancient and heartless inferno, he too finds the fiery bed of Papilla, the beautiful wife of this, the beautiful wife of one of the city's most influential magnates. With this forbidden pleasure comes forbidden knowledge, and Virgil is drawn into the web of intrigue that threatens to turn the terrible powers of Avino against him. For centuries, the lords of the city have thrilled on the bloody sacrifice of their people. Now they determine to add one more name to the scroll of Arvino's dead, and to cast Virgil now as an outlaw into the burning pits of the dying empire. I heard that this is, Davidson did not think of this exactly as a sequel, but just sort of like another entry. I don't know if that makes sense. It's not like it's a prequel or something, or a sequel to that other novel, to The Phoenix in the Mirror. I also heard that this is a sort of a much more closed-in and claustrophobic novel. I don't know. But both of them sound great. There is a third novel. I want to say that it was unfinished or wasn't quite finished. I'm not certain. It's only been published one time in physical form. I feel the price is a bit dear, so I have not paid it. I just can't. I've seen it for $100, and that seems a little much. but the audio and e-format are available. Maybe I'll pull the trigger on it. I probably want to try, at least read one of it before I try it. I don't know. Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I'll do the ebook or audiobook and then decide if I would need to own it or not. But there's one more. Is this the last one? No, it is not the last one, but it's almost the last one. I got one more Davidson book, and this is one of those times where, again, sort of like that Lafferty book, I kind of like read it and I thought, oh, I gotta get this book. And that's Avram Davidson and Grania Davis's Marco Polo and the Sleeping Beauty. Your freedom for a princess. 10 years in the service of Kublai Khan, Marco, Niccolo, and Maefo Polo, the Polos, have seen miracles. That was me. Have seen magic and miracles and accumulated riches beyond dreaming, but now all they want is to return to their beloved Venice. Alas, as the only Westerners in the glittering Mongol court, they are high favorites with the Khan of Khans, and before he will allow them to leave, they must undertake one strange final quest. Kublai is beginning to suffer the ravages of old age. Tales have reached him of a mysterious princess who sleeps forever, yet remains forever young, unaging. Surely she has the secret of immortality. Bring me the princess, he tells the Polos, and you are free. Marco Polo and the Sleeping Beauty. I'm not really sure why Charles Bronson is making an appearance, but that's okay. Whatever. I just love the idea of a fantasy story about Marco Polo, or maybe fantasy, maybe it's historical fiction. I don't really know. Well, it is by Baen Fantasy, so I get the impression, also based on the cover, that there's some fantastic elements happening. It'd be very disappointing if it's just completely no fantasy. I don't know if it'd be disappointing. It'd probably still be very entertaining. But Avram and Grania Davidson. I'm sorry. No. Avram Davidson and Grania Davis. So I was very excited about this. And also, I don't know that I knew this or not, but Seth, who runs the Avram Davidson podcast, I believe must be related to Avram, although I kind of suspected that, based on the fact that this dedication for this book says for Ethan Davidson and Seth Davis, number 1 and number 2 sons. Kind of cool. I'm excited about all these things, and I don't know that I'm going to get to this one right away, but this one I've got some really good energy about. So I saw a recommendation video and it was on there, and I started reading it, and I really like it. I highly recommend it, and that's John York's Into the Woods. I've not finished it, but it's all about just it's the 5-act journey into story. So it's just breaking down stories into 5 acts and talking about how that works. Not going to go into it a whole lot, but it really is helping me to better understand the story structure, especially for a variety of reasons. Let's put it like that. And I am really enjoying it. Very intelligently written, very informative, very useful, very practical. Lots of wonderful examples to really kind of cement the idea of how story structure works. Instead of, I think one thing I really appreciate, he says, people talk about when you're writing or writing in general, how it's sort of like, well, it's just kind of the muse finds you or whatever. And he's like, well, no, it's like, if you can take a class on how to draw, then you should be able to take a class on how to write, right? It shouldn't, you know what I mean? It's like, why do we have this weird mysticism about writing? It's not how that works. There's a structure. And here's he kind of talks about the structure, not to say that his is definitively the only structure, and he even admits that, or to say that is true, that it is definitive, but really just to sort of shed light on what is a lot of times obfuscated. Really enjoy it. I recommend it. If like the story structure is something that you kind of like to understand better, I really feel like this book would answer a lot of questions. It's answering a lot of questions for me, or at least helping me to really to something that I might intuitively understand, but not really be able to articulate. And the other one is just a random thing I came across. And actually, there's two. I guess we want 2 things. And that's just this book I ran across. And I thought this seems really neat. And it's What We See When We Read by Peter Mendelssohn. And it says something like, what do we see when we read? Did Tolstoy really describe Anna Karenina? Did Melville ever tell us what exactly Ishmael looked like? The collection of fragmented images on a page, a graceful ear here, a stray curl there, a hat positioned just so, and other clues and signifiers help us create an image of a character. But in fact, our sense that we know a character intimately has very little to do with our ability to concretely picture these literary figures. It's a little sample of it, but again, this is another book that I think was like, it was kind of like a sort of like, it sort of like starts with like a little bit of an exercise and gets you to just like talk about this character and like, what do you see? And then talks about how we picture a character and how we slowly revise that picture that we make of a character as we read. It's like this active process when you read of like designing that character. I thought was so interesting. I thought it was so interesting. It is. It looks really, I read, whenever I get into a book, I tend to like, if I'm interested in it, I'll read like 20, 30 pages and be like, ooh, yeah, sounds good. Of course, that means I have to reread it. But the only other thing I want to say, and we are a little long in the tooth here, but that's okay, is while I was picking this last book up, I saw this screenplay next to it, and I'd never heard of the screenplay, and it said there was a movie. I said, oh. And I was like, what movie? It had some names in it. And I said, huh. And I texted my wife. She was not with me that day, unfortunately. I'm like, have you ever heard of this movie? She's like, I'm like, can we stream it? Do you know if we can watch it? And she's like, oh, I found it at the library. I can check it out on Hoopla. We have it for 2 days. I'm like, awesome. So, 2 things. One, I didn't know that you could do that. You can like essentially digitally check out a book, digitally check out a movie from the library and watch it on Hoopla. Don't ask me how to do it. It can be done. And this is an important thing. Maybe I would do a thing on how to do it. She would probably be like, you just click here and you just sign in. And I'm like, you make it seem so anticlimactic. It was like a process. Anyways, it's probably something very simple. But so we watched this movie, and it was amazing. I did not get the screenplay. I might go back and get it. Who knows? But the movie is called Noises Off. It stars Michael Caine, Christopher Reeves, John Ritter, Carol Burnett. Those are the big names that I can think of right off the top of my head. It's sort of like it's a comedy about actors in a play, and it's really not about the play itself. It's about the actors who are playing their characters, and it's just absolutely hilarious. It's so good. It really does. It takes just a minute or two to get going, but after it got going, I was like, I just couldn't see like, oh, this is very entertaining. Michael Caine being the director, very frustrated with his actors who are sort of saying, well, why do I take this bag with me? That doesn't make sense. What's my motivation? He's like, literally, we are opening tomorrow. We don't no, I'm sorry, today. It's past midnight. We are opening today, and just don't have. It was great. It was great. There's a whole sequence in the middle where the actors are all backstage, and there's a live performance going out, and they're going out on stage and coming back, and some are backstage and some are in front. And there's a whole thing going on backstage, right? Because it's all about the actors themselves and their interactions and their relationships with each other and everything else that's going on. But while the play is going on. But so none of them can talk. And so it's just like, I don't know how long it is. It's like 15 or 20 minutes. Maybe 20 minutes is too long. It's at least 10 or 15 minutes of like them, the actors themselves not speaking unless they're off camera, speaking on stage and you can kind of hear them. And it's not exactly slapstick, but it's like, I've not seen anything that's like physical comedy like that is good since maybe like, I don't know, since like Duck Soup or something. It was so, I can't imagine what it took to choreograph it. If it sounds interesting to you, I'll go check it out. Go check it out. Noises Off. Early 90s. I want to say 92, which I was surprised by. It seemed like it was an earlier movie than that, but really a lot of fun. Very funny movie. Very, very funny movie. And a very funny play, apparently. And that the movie is just sort of a movie of the play. It was a stage production that actually went on. So I might go back and get that. I don't know what it would be to read it, but the movie was really hilarious. Just fantastic. So recommendation there. Check it out. You can probably get it maybe you can get it from your library. You should. Choose the library, right? Thanks for sticking around. Listen to me ramble. I try to at least be amusing. I hope I can be. Like and subscribe helps if you're interested. Share helps if you're interested. Check out these other guys that I'm talking about. There's so many good things. Curtis, Stephen Reeds, great stuff. Love his stuff. Daniel Autojack Peterson. His channel talks a lot about Lafferty. I think he talks Cormac McCarthy too. That's not the only thing he talks about. I would assume by now you've seen Chris's stuff at Liminal, and Jason also. He does some fantastic ones. He did one not too long ago on Time Bandits. I was literally rolling. Okay, not literally rolling, because that would mean I was Rob Lowe and Parks and Rec, literally rolling on the floor. Okay. Great stuff. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time. I'm done. Bye.